Hello, welcome everyone. Bob Sager, founder of SpearPoint Solutions, with you. Super excited to have this next in the series of Real World MBA webinars. We've got just an exciting lineup today. I've got some fantastic information I'm going to be sharing with you about what is one of my favorite scientific creative thinking methods later. But first up, we have my good friend David Rosenberg, who is going to talk about, once you have a great idea or strategy, does it actually make sense to go to market with it? And David's going to be talking about how you can do proper research to ensure that you've got a pretty good idea that you're going to have success in the marketplace with that offer. Or on the flip side, maybe avoid going to market with a total flop. And so, David, welcome. How are you today?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I could not be more excited to be presenting to your potential MBA students here in what I believe, at least for me, is the foundation or the heart of any type of business strategy.
Well, and you really know your stuff. I mean, you've been doing this for over 3 decades, and so, it's like breathing for you. But listen, it's going to be a lot of
Yes.
education for the rest of us. So, without further ado, David, go ahead and share your screen and educate us about how to do proper market research.
Excellent. Can you see my screen okay, Sir Bob?
I cannot. Now I
Hopefully
can.
it's getting okay.
Yeah, now I
So
can.
technology is always wonderful, folks. For about the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to take you through a few slides that will help you understand what market research is versus what feasibility studies are, and the different forms of market research, what they are and what they aren't. And I see if anyone catches the surprise of what is not considered good research. And I look forward to either getting a DM or comments after this show. But let's dive right in. So it does not want to turn. I love technology. Okay. Not sure why it's causing me some fits and spurts here. My apologies. It's so interesting, everyone. Right before the show, we actually tested this, make sure everything was working. And it's there we go. Okay, so the reason why businesses fail is not because they didn't put in the effort, they didn't put in the hours. You hear people talking about grinding. It's not even because they didn't have a great idea. It's because they had all these assumptions about that great idea that they never tested. And so what happens is when you add market research plus feasibility, you have a reality check because I'm sure people can relate to this. How many of you ever launched an idea or anything for that matter, and then later realized, oops, it's not exactly what my customers wanted? So the biggest mistakes are, and we've all heard this, if only someone had told me sooner, if only I had known before, if only, if only, if only. But the reality is that most entrepreneurs and most small business owners and even a lot of product managers in larger companies assume us, you are the customer yourself, and you're not the patient, you're not the one using the potential product or service in almost every case, or you overestimate what the demand is for what you offer, or you believe everyone's going to buy this is an incredible idea, it's earth shattering, or you never got real customer feedback. Or here's a good one, and this one's a tough one. We made a great decision, a big decision based on how we feel, based on excitement. Uh, you didn't do really deep dive competition. You underestimated what your competitors saw. A post today on LinkedIn that said you should ignore the competition. No, don't ignore it. Don't let it keep you up at night. but never ignore what your competitors are doing. Or you didn't price it effectively, or you didn't have a full strategy. Market research or feasibility studies, or a combination of those two, answer all these questions. But the biggest thing it does, it gives you the best opportunity to build a strategy that will bring success. So, market research, what is it really, though? It answers questions. Market research answers exactly who your customers really are versus who you hope they are or think they are. Answers what they really want and why they want it and how do they feel about it. Um, just as important, what they don't want to see, what they don't want to hear, what they don't want to feel. Biggie. Market research helps you really decide on um, helps you really decide how people make decisions, what drives that, what drives the behavior, and again, what competitors are doing. And my slide screen has frozen again. Appreciate everyone's grace here. Technology is amazing most of the time. Let's see if we can't. There we go. So, seriously, would you ever build a house without having the blueprints for how it should be designed, without understanding if the builder can actually build it? So, market research provides you that blueprint, right? Feasibility studies, it's like the inspection that you have before you buy the land or buy the house or buy the property. Without them, you really are just guessing and you're going off emotion. And running a business off emotion is never a winning strategy. So let's talk a little bit about the differences between market research. Within market research, you've got what's called secondary research that looks at everything that's existing and already happened. It's historical. A lot of people will say you can use it for predictive modeling. And yes, you can use it for a piece of predictive modeling. You can predict somewhat what behaviors are based on past experience, but that's often not the case anymore because people's attention span is jaded, if you will, by so much stimuli now. We all have like a 15-second attention span. And everything's moving and changing, and the market dynamics are so quick. I'm not saying it changes every month, but it certainly can change quarter to quarter, certainly can change every 6 months. And you have to be on top of that, especially with demographics and local market reports. So, secondary data can give you what exists, but you still have to do primary data, live interviews, focus groups, in person surveys, and observations of people. Grab that and you marry that with and match that with secondary research. The primary research, what I call now, what's happening now, when that is linked with what's already happened, then you can predict further. But let me tell you what is not good research: online surveys, reviews of any kind, and star rates. And I know many of you are like, wait, I have a small business, I've got products. These star ratings are huge. Well, you can't make real business decisions off star ratings. It's a bragging point. It's like a vanity metric. I've got 5,004.7 rating stars. That's a great vanity metric of what hundreds of people believe and perceive, and that's a piece of data. But you can't make a business decision off that. You wouldn't change the strategy from that. The individual reviews that are written, some are really hateful, some are really solid. But when they rank you from 1 to 5, if someone gives you a 3 and they give you, I didn't like the packaging. Well, that's one that says they didn't like packaging. They gave you a 3. If you only have 10 reviews, that pulls everything down. You can't make a business decision with that. Online surveys are directional at best. But let's be real, when you do an online survey, you are leading somebody to an answer and you're trying to validate what you already thought. And a lot of times that can be problematic. So you want to be very careful with um, Sorry about that. My window keeps coming up for messages. You want to be very careful. If you do an online survey, think about what you're going to decide from it. If you're asking, does someone like red versus blue better? Okay, that gives you information you could potentially use in a product development, but you're not going to know the why do they like the blue better? Did they have a bad experience with the red? I mean, you have to go way deeper. You cannot make good, solid business decisions off a survey, off any kind. And everyone says, "Well, I do Survey Monkey, and I know my customers. I know." Well, you can find out informational facts, like you can find out what they earn, you can find out what they drive, where they shop. What you can't find out is the why behind it, the feeling behind that, the emotion behind that. And that's where you want to make business decisions, is off of what makes somebody feel something. You can only find that out if you do primary research. So let's move on to the next slide, I hope. There we go. So when you're launching something new or changing pricing or going out for the first time with pricing, opening up a new location or expanding services or targeting a new customer group or everything, that is when you want to really focus on when to use market research to answer all those questions. When I'm trying to play this real time as I'm clicking to try to get the next slide up. Um, when you go into here we go. So what exactly though is a feasibility study and how does it differ from basic market research? Well, in feasibility, you examine things. You examine demand that's real versus demand that's perceived. Can't do that in secondary market research. You look at a deep dive in your competition, not just what they're saying and how they're positioning, but conversely, people that buy from a competitor, why? What do they feel? What are they thinking? Why are they buying product A versus yours or product B? Feasibility looks at all the costs involved. Feasibility looks at all the risks involved and all the operational realities. What's it going to cost day to day to run the business? How many people do you need to staff it? What licenses do you need? What does it really take? In other words, like Bob said in the very beginning, feasibility answers, does it make sense? Does it make sense to launch this idea? Does it make sense to develop this product? Does it make sense to offer this service? Does it make sense to price it here versus there? So many possibilities. And I'm sure many of you can now see the utility, whether you're in personal branding. Does it make sense to have this voice versus that tone? If you didn't do market research, you don't know the voice, tone, messaging, images, platforms that have the best chance of success with your given target audience. If you're in personal branding and you've worked with a personal branding expert and they don't ask you, how do you know your clients? How do you know? Well, I know the ideal customer I want to go after. No, that's the ideal customer you hope you can grab. Doesn't mean it's the right one to go after because you didn't do the research. I think you're kind of seeing the mold here. Doing proper research is the foundation. It's the bricks, if you will, to every single business strategy you can even think of. So the differences are, just to recap, market research, you understand people, your competition, their preferences, and market dynamics. Feasibility takes that two steps further. You understand viability, how to be profitable, all the risks involved, but most importantly, what is your probability of success? And what's great with our company is we take all the information we get from primary research, secondary research, everything that is available, every discussion we have, and it goes into an algorithm that is created to predict the probability of success. And this algorithm has been built and continues to evolve over the past 30 years. It's proprietary and offers you a chance to really get a quick snapshot as to, can this really work? Is it worth spending money and taking a risk, or should I walk away? So here's the one I'll leave you with, Bob and audience and everybody watching. Do I need market research? Do I need feasibility? Do I need both? So ask yourself this: do you truly know your customers? I mean, really know them, not the ones you might have already had, but maybe it's the target audience you're going to. If you haven't done research, you don't know your customers and you don't know what they drive, what they think, what their age group is. Are they mostly women? Are they men? Are they what are the type of messaging did they respond to? So if you don't know them at that deep level, do market research. Do you know can this idea actually work? Well, if you didn't do the right feasibility research to learn if it can actually work, you need to. So, is this a big decision that costs anything? If there's a cost attached to the decision you're getting ready to make, do both. Even if it's just a little bit of market research and a little bit of feasibility, do something to validate a spend of money. And that, my friends, is a quick 20-minute tutorial, not quite 20 minutes, on the difference between market research and feasibility studies. And I leave you with one thought. If you have an idea, test it. Just because your family and friends tell you it's an awesome idea doesn't mean everybody else will. Go test it. Not with 10 people, with 100 people, not with a survey, but talk and ask them or interact with them in LinkedIn or on Instagram or on Facebook or on TikTok, whatever your platform is, and find out, validate that it's a good idea. But then when you're ready to start thinking about how you're going to go to market, do the research there too. Find out the best positioning that gives you a chance for success, the best messaging, voice, tone, imagery, packaging, size, colors, every single thing that you can research, do so. Don't get stuck in analysis paralysis, though. Once you get the information back, look at directionally what it's telling you to do and then go do it. It's that simple. Thank you very much for your time. And let me unshare.
David, this is it's a fascinating topic. I mean, how many people out there in business, especially smaller businesses, are just kind of throwing darts at a board, and just
Everybody I keep running into.
it's like hope is this is kind of a trite saying now, but hope is not a strategy. And
Oh, exactly. I had a call this morning, and the guy was really cool, really nice guy, really interesting product mix that he's wanting to launch. He goes, and I know who I'm selling to. I said, great. Where did you get this information? I did a huge survey monkey. I sent it out to 1,300 people. Great. How many people responded? I had like 10%, 138, I think, out of 1,300. 138 people responded. That's pretty good. And can I see some of the questions you asked? And then he showed me and he asked 7 questions. I said, 7 questions. You're going to make an entire go to market strategy off of 7 questions. And one of the questions was a yes, no. Would you buy a product like this or not? That is not market research. That is a data point that one person said, or 30 people said they would buy a product like this. What you don't
right.
know is why. How are you going to market it to them? How much are they willing to pay for it? How quickly do they want it delivered? There's so many other questions that people leave out because, just like you said, they're throwing darts and using that hope. I hope I know my client and customer better than anyone else. I can tell you with 100% assurity, you don't probably know them as well as you need to.
Well, we're going to have some time at the end for questions and answers for anybody that's watching live here, and so I'm sure they're going to want to pick your brain. I'll probably have some more questions at that time, but I shared a post on LinkedIn earlier today that said it had a bit from my first book, which was published back in 2008, and it said, wherever people are hollering loudly, that's where the big money is, right?
Yeah.
And I think one of the big differences between people who are super successful and those who just remain average, it's they listen to complaints in a different way, right? And they evaluate those complaints as opportunities as opposed to something to be avoided, or something to just sort of play along with and go, yeah, that really sucks. So, but to that end, once you hear those complaints, then we're going to talk about a scientific creative thinking method that will help you develop ideas and solutions for those. And let me share my screen here. All right, let me get back to where I need to be. Whoop, there we go. All right, David, you seeing my screen okay?
I can. Absolutely.
Okay, good, good. So let me make sure to get to, trying to get to presenter mode. Give me 1 second. Let me figure that out here. All right. First of all, before I jump into my content, I want to thank our good friends at Graphy for generously sponsoring this. As I have said multiple times, but in particular this one, this information that we're sharing here is normally very proprietary and it's very pricey. And so thanks to our friends at Graphy for sponsoring this. It's being brought to you at no charge. And we're going to have them on just a little bit later today to talk about one of their fine offerings called the Power 20 Boot Camp. And they'll be sharing a little bit more info in depth on how that works and how it'll benefit you. As I said before, we're going to talk about a scientific creative thinking method. The one that we're going to talk about today is called Magnify. And I got to tell you, among all the different scientific creative thinking methods, I have a personal bias for this one. I just love it. And there's a story behind that that I'll tell in a minute, kind of why I got kind of enamored with this particular method. But one thing I will tell you that in the world that we see today, it's almost like a vast sea of white eggs. And in a vast sea of white eggs, it's the golden egg that gets noticed and actually gets bought. So in this presentation today, we're going to be talking about how to do that. You know, one of my favorite sort of personal achievement mindset speakers is Dr. Wayne Dyer. He unfortunately he's not with us anymore, but I always caught his specials that he did for PBS, and one of the things that he said in one of those specials, in fact, I think he made this the talk of one of his specials, was when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And that is so true. And so this method today, Magnify, is going to help you change the way you look at things. And so what is Magnify? Magnify is taking the whole or part of the subject that you're looking at and greatly enhancing it or dramatically upping the scale. And I said before, I've got a personal story and one of the first times I was ever exposed to real world results from Magnify, or at least the ones that I paid attention to, was back in 2013. I was driving on vacation with my family. We were driving west on Interstate 70, and we come across a sign that says, "See the world's largest wind chime in Casey, Illinois." And David, for a minute, I felt like Clark Griswold. I'm like, hey kids, do you want to go see the world's largest wind chime? Sure, Dad. And so, we took a sort of a 2 mile detour off of Interstate 70 and drove into Casey, Illinois. Well, when we got to Casey, Illinois, we found out that not only do they have the world's largest wind chime, that's it right here. It's 55 feet tall, by the way, and there's a pull rope on there where you can pull on the this rope, and it makes the wind chimes chime. Of course, 55 feet tall and those gigantic wind chimes, it sounds more like a gong than it does about wind chimes. But we found out that that town, one of the ways that they revitalized their economy and got people like me to actually take the exit off of Interstate 70 and come to their town and look at all these things is they have Guinness World Records for multiple different items within their town. On this slide here, you've got the world's largest spinning top, the world's largest mousetrap, the world's largest mailbox, which you can actually walk up in and get this, you can actually mail a letter from that mailbox because when you put a letter in, it's got a flag on the side that actually comes up and the mail, U.S. mail actually stops there and picks up mail. We've got the world's largest rocking chair, which was on the previous slide, the world's largest barber pole, the world's largest rocking horse. Another thing that is not on this slide, but we went to see, and we learned this when we were standing there looking at the world's largest wind chime, is they have the world's largest golf tee at the Casey Country Club. And so, we went there and, what was the point behind all this? Well, guess what? While we were in Casey, Illinois, we spent some money that we weren't intending to. But because of the sign and because of that they did something out of the ordinary, right? When's the last time that you saw the world's largest of anything, right? And so it piques your curiosity and just it almost compels you to pay attention. And so let's talk about some other things that compel your attention. And we're going to talk about products and promotions. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this before, but back in 2017, Anheuser-Busch, which produces a number of different beers, but in particular for this one, they produce a beer called Natural Light, which was launched in 1977. And so for the 40th anniversary in 2017, they produced a 77 pack of Natural Light. It weighed something ridiculous like 63 pounds. Um, but listen, that's so unusual, among all the single can offerings, the six packs, the 12 packs, the 24 packs. How often do you see a 77 pack of beer? And, how you might ask yourself, well, how much did that cost to produce? How much profit did they make on it? But in a lot of ways, those questions are somewhat irrelevant because it got a lot of publicity, it got word of mouth buzz, and that's really kind of the best advertising that you can get. And listen, that was in 2017, that's 8 years ago. It's still being talked about today. Um, if in no other forum when I talk about this magnify method. Here's another great example. The uh, made in Idaho, this gigantic potato that actually it's not an actual potato. Potatoes do not grow that big, I promise, not even in Idaho. And so, but um, it was the Idaho Potato Growers Association to to as a promotional vehicle for their Grown in Idaho campaign, they came up with this concept of having this gigantic potato drive around on this semi trailer. And initially, it was intended to be 1 year. That was all they're going to do that promotion for a year, just drive all around the continental US. Well, they discovered it quickly became such a phenomenon that whenever they would go to a town and they would announce that they were going, they would draw hundreds and thousands of people to see this gigantic potato on the back of this semi trailer. And now, it's just it's an ongoing thing, and it it is it's more compelling than they ever could have imagined up front. Here's another good example. Let me back up a step and say, listen, um, magnify does not just have to be increasing the size of something. It could be magnifying any aspect of it. I think about the rock band Kiss, and prior to them, they literally turned a rock and roll concert into theater. and you never knew what you were going to do. You never knew what they were going to do or what you were going to see when you went to one of their shows. And listen, that was half the attraction. Hopefully you liked their music anyway, but that was half the attraction is you the surprise that was built into almost every show. And listen, prior to them, people mostly just stood on stage and played. And so they literally transformed the industry by being just not just the makeup and the gigantic platform shoes that they wore, but fire breathing, a flying drum set, guitars on fire. You just never knew what you're going to see, and so they really amplified the experience. Here are three other examples that I just love to talk about in this topic. The first one here, now you've got, I think you actually have six blade razors, but prior to 1971, with the introduction of what was called the Track 2, razors, including the safety razor that King C. Gillette invented in the early 20th century, they were all one blade. And that was it. That was the only option that you had. And so they literally, in one fell swoop, doubled the number of blades that a razor had. And they had some good marketing behind it, but that quickly became the accepted industry norm. And a lot of people, once they were able to, copied them. Well, Gillette just kept upping the scale, right? They went to three blade razors and then four blade razors. And now, like I said, I think there are six blade razors now. Who knows? There's going to be a dozen blades before long. You might think, well, that's ridiculous. Well, maybe it is ridiculous, but guess what? It transformed that industry from just something that kind of people had to do into something, it's a multi-billion dollar industry. And, they razors for men, razors for women, and specialty razors for various areas of your body, not to get too personal or anything, but so they literally thought bigger. Whether they were consciously using this method or not, they thought bigger, right? They magnified their thinking. FedEx did the same thing with delivery of packages and envelopes. And I don't know if you're aware of this, David, but uh, Fred Smith, who recently died just within the last few months here, he was the founder of Federal Express. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but he wrote a paper as I think part of his master's thesis in college, and it got a C. The paper that he wrote with the proposal to create this company got a C because his professor, supposedly a wise person, said, "Why would anybody pay extra to get it over there, to get it overnight when they can just send it through the post office?" That was how much vision he had. Well, Fred Smith said, "Yeah, I'm convinced that they will." Maybe he had some good market research behind him. So that said, that was a possibility. Another example I love to talk about is super glue. If you are people of a certain age, you remember the commercials back in the day from super glue where the guy was literally super glued his hard hat to a steel beam and hung from this steel beam using super glue just to demonstrate the strength of it. And it dramatically upped the strength of what people thought a glue was and could do, and just astounding. Um, yeah, I want to say thank you again to our good friends at Graphy for sponsoring this. Let's talk about how to apply this in your world. All right. Here are the exact questions that we use when we're working with clients to develop a unique, effective business strategy for them and that we teach in our workshops. So here's the questions. What can be added? Can we provide or take more time? Could we make it stronger? Is making it higher a possibility? What if we made it longer? What can be exaggerated? What features can be overstated? How about greater frequency? If we add more features, could that make our product or service unique? What can add extra value? And here's my personal favorite. What can be magnified, made larger, or extended? And so I I hope these questions and this opens your mind to more possibilities on what could be. Listen, there's an old saying that build a better mousetrap and the world will beat a path to your door. That is not true. The world has to know about your better mousetrap, right? And if you work with the processes that David's talking about, you'll know whether that better mousetrap even ought to be brought to market. I encourage you to go online and watch this talk from Seth Godin about how to get your ideas to spread. He said that in order to get your ideas to spread, especially in a hyper-competitive world like we live in now, um, they have to be remarkable. And he clarified a little bit with that. He said, "Listen, I don't just mean neat, right? Well, that's how a lot of people use the term remarkable is for neat. But he said, what I mean is they need to be worth remarking on. And some of the
Yes.
things that we talked about today, those are worth remarking on. And that is the kind of stuff that really helps your ideas, your product, your service spread in the modern economy. So, listen, thank you for your time and attention. We're going to bring on our good friends from Graphy now to talk about one of the great offers that they have that we're proud to have them as sponsors of this content. And then
Really
if
great
there's time
stuff.
left, we'll have some questions and answers after them. But welcome, Vanchika. Good to have you on today and take it away and talk about your offer here.
First of all, thank you so much for having me here, Bob and David. Both of you, your content was phenomenal. I personally took so many notes, which we're going to share internally, which I'm going to implement personally. And I think one of the key takeaways, that the sentence that stuck with me was hope is not a business strategy. Okay. Everyone says the season of the holidays is all about hoping and celebrating your wins and when 2026 comes we're going to plan it that way, but we do things differently here. We say that while this season, when of course you take a break, of course you spend some time with your family, of course you celebrate, but then you keep working internally, spend few minutes every day just to make sure that when 2026 comes you do not rely on hope. You actually have built in a foundation that you can start building your building on. Okay.
Exactly. Exactly.
So that is why, thank you so much, David. That is why we have this offer for you. It's called the Power 20 Boot Camp. And I'm going to take 5 minutes to just run everyone through this offer. Just let me know when you are able to see my screen and we'll get started.
I can see it.
Perfect. All right. So, before I tell you about the Power 20 Bootcamp, a little bit about Graphy. We're a SaaS tool. We belong to the industry of learning management systems. And it's a very simple, intuitive tool through which you can create courses, you can do webinars, build communities. If you're a person or you're a businessman, you're trying to create some lead magnets like ebooks, you're trying to do surveys, just the way Bob and David were speaking about, you can do all that here. You can get your website, your mobile application, send out newsletters through Graphy. You can build your own AI avatar now. So this is going to help you make sure that your business is supported not just by yourself and your expertise, but you have the right tech stack for it as well. So here's what the Power 20 Bootcamp is. We do not expect you to know everything before you come here. This is your launch pad to Graphy, the Power 20 Bootcamp, where the first step is you actually come down and you learn from industry experts, experts like Bob, experts like David. There are more industry experts here who are going to actually teach you how do you identify your niche? How do you actually go ahead and productize your knowledge? And then ultimately, how do you start monetizing all of that you've created? So the best thing, again, I'm going to quote Bob here, is he said, build the best mousetrap and people will find a place to your door. They will not. So just even if you have the world's best offer, even if you have all the knowledge in the world, you need a strategy. You need someone to work with you to make sure that you have an amazing launch, that you have eyeballs, and your cash register is ringing, because that's what keeps you motivated, right? The second is you get access to powerful tools. So this is not a very passive boot camp that we are inviting you to. It's an active boot camp. So whatever you're learning in these sessions, you go ahead and apply all of these within the Graphy tools. So I'm going to speak a little more about tools in a minute. The third step is you get hands-on experience with expert support. Just the way I said in the beginning, we do not expect you to know everything. At the very beginning, you will have your customer success manager who will help you on board. You'll have your bootcamp facilitator who's going to make sure that any questions that you have are answered. And of course, the whole Graphy team is here. And if everything aligns well, you set up your platform with Graphy. And here's the thing, because you've been a part of this journey, because you launched something new with Graphy, we give you a launch on the Times Square in New York. So imagine your personal brand, your business, your product, your service, whatever you've created, being actually there on the biggest billboard in the world, the Times Square in New York. Okay.
Wow. Wow.
Yes, David. I can also share towards the end, if we have some time, we can actually show the last feature that we had, and it's going to make some people excited as well. Moving on to the next one. This is our, let's say, alumni slide, because what we like to say is success leaves trails. So if you follow the steps, you are sure to succeed. And these are three of my favorite stories that I like to feature here. First is Ash and Nick. So they were content creators. They were not actively monetizing their content. They were doing furniture flipping short videos by the name of Cheeky Cheeky on TikTok. You can look them up if you're active. And they decided they wanted to create a course on furniture flipping because of the kind of attention they were getting. And when they came on Graphy, they made 25,000 US dollars within the first 45 days of their launch. Okay. So if they can, then you can. The second story is of Beyond School. So Beyond School is a whole organization. They have multiple instructors, they have multiple certifications that they're giving out, and yet they wanted some support, they wanted some strategy because they had their new courses, etc. launching. We gave them the platform, the tool, the dedicated customer success manager, and within the first 2 hours of their launch, they sold over 600 courses. So again, if they can, then you can. And finally, another very, very inspirational story is of Ruth Langhorne, who's a mompreneur who is not only making passive income herself, but she has empowered 5,000 women through consulting, teaching, and strategizing to help them build passive income. So if you have a doubt, imagine the kind of lives you can touch, imagine the kind of amount of money that you can make, and also kind of influence you can have over your community, the people, the society. Okay. If you're a numbers person, I'm just going to leave this slide up here and let you have a look at the numbers that we have. We've had 240 enrollments over the past 5 months. 197 people have actually been dedicated enough to graduate. And out of those, 148 people have active webinars, courses, memberships, which are active right now. If you talk about money, we have these 148 products or people who are creating these products have generated 1.3 million in a total GMV over the past 5 months. Okay. Now, if you haven't been paying attention to me all this while, I just need your attention for 20 more seconds, because this is the exact offer that we have for you. If you sign up for the Power 20 Bootcamp today, you are getting 1 month access to tools, which consists of a website builder. By the way, we have an AI website builder coming up in the next 10 days. So if you're thinking about revamping your website or starting off from scratch, this is the perfect opportunity for you. You have your course builder, email marketing, webinar funnel, unlimited landing pages, and Zoom classes like this one.
Yes.
You have a 4-day workshop where you learn how to create, market, and sell your courses, not just your courses, but also your digital products, your webinars, and so on and so forth. You get a certification to officially recognize that you were a part of it. We launch you in the Times Square in New York to give you that additional boost, to give you that additional credibility so that you can put it all over your website and your LinkedIn that you've been featured on the Times Square. And of course, you have your personal onboarding with a success manager. Now, here's the thing. It all comes with a price. And if you want to Google the Power 20 Bootcamp, you're going to see that it is priced at $499. But because you are here through David and Bob today, you are getting a flat 90% off here and getting all of the things that I've just listed before at only $49. Okay, so my team is right here on the call. They'll be putting in a link. You get everything at $49, but we do not even expect you to commit to the $49 right away, because I'm sure you have questions about the program. I'm sure you have questions about the product. So all you have to do right now is pay $20 to simply book a call, reserve your spot, get on a one-on-one call with my consultant, have a word with them, see if it's a good fit, see if you'd like to move forward. If yes, then you pay the difference. So $49 minus $20, you pay only $29 to get access to everything. And here's the real deal, okay? If you feel it's not a good fit for you, if you feel that, this is not something that I'm looking for, this doesn't support my business or my visions for 2025, you can simply claim a refund of $20, no questions asked. Okay? So the call to action from my side is just click on the link that we have in the chat. It's a Stripe link. You click on it, pay $20, head over to the calendar, book your one-on-one call, get on the call, and try to see if we can help you and your business scale, make you ready for 2026. Okay. So once again, Bob and David, thank you for letting me be here. I'm going to leave this screen up for a couple of more minutes so that everybody gets all the idea, and then you can take it from there.
Thanks, Vanshika. When you think about it, the potential ROI with all that comes with the Power 20 Bootcamp, with the potential ROI that's there at 499, it's a great bargain. I mean, I think at 499, but at $49, my goodness. I mean, that's
I
kind of
was
a
thinking the
no-brainer right there.
exact same thing. Exact
Yeah.
same thing. I thought, wow, 499, that's the discount. And then I saw the big mark through. Folks, I can tell you right now, as someone who's putting together coursework, not a boot camp, that 499 for what you're getting is incredible. And just use this as an example. Let's say that you created a course, like one of her examples, that sold 600 courses. Let's say the course cost only $99. That 99 times 600, that's a pretty nice return on that investment.
Yeah, I mean and David, now you know why I'm proud to have these guys as our sponsors. Graphy is just they really bring value to the marketplace. So I hope you guys that are tuning in grab your spot, get on your one-on-one call, and really take advantage of being here. So, I want to take a minute here at the end and open it up. We've got just a few minutes left for any questions that you have on David's presentation, on my presentation. Just drop them in the chat if you have them. Um, let's see if we've got some over here. If not, David, I've got a question for you on market research. How can let's say I'm a poor upstart and I really can't afford to hire you right now. Okay. What sort of topics or suggestions what processes would people go about if they're sort of a broke startup and can't yet
Well,
hire you?
and that's always a tough question to answer. And people say, well, why are you giving that answer? Isn't that talking you out of project work? So there's a couple of things. If you have zero money and you're bootstrapping and just getting started, you must test your idea. and not with friends and family. The best way to do that is to talk to people. And the best way for you to talk to people is to go out into the public. Let's say it's a product like, a pen. I'm not sure if you can see this, but let's say it's a pen. And you want to test to see if having this particular pen is a good idea. Carry it with you and go to a public place and just ask people, hey, can I have 2 minutes of your time? Hey, Bob, can I ask you, hold this pen, tell me what you think. And then shut up and take notes from that open-ended question. Tell me what you think. What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? And would you be willing to pay for it? And if so, why and how much? Get as much information as you can in just that few minutes, and then do that times. Really need to have about 40 people to have statistical significance in doing this type of in-person quick hits. If you can't do that, see if you can pull in 8 people minimum into what we call a focus group. Bring them in, buy them lunch or buy them a dinner. That's a lot less expensive than probably hiring my firm to go do the research. And then over dinner, ask them the same types of questions. The problem or challenge here, though, is make sure that you're doing follow up. Look at the body language. You're going to have to really be skilled at being able to say, okay, well, why did you say that when Bob and Mary said something different? And you got to have that dynamic of the group. And that's why having it professionally facilitated is always better. But if you can't afford it, start there. You have to find out if your idea is a good idea or if just you are excited about it.
Right. No, I was reminded when during your talk, I was reminded of my client Jennifer Gilmore, who's actually going to be our co-presenter on next week's webinar
Oh,
on
that'll
next
be
Monday.
fantastic.
And she did a different sort of market research. And what I mean by that, and you might know this story, David, she had been told her entire life what a great singer she was. But it was by people that knew and liked her. And so she actually went and she tried out, she auditioned for a show that used to be on, I don't know if it's still on, called The X Factor. And they had auditions, she's a Florida resident, and they had auditions in Miami. And they had, get this, 8,000 people that auditioned for the X Factor at the Miami tryouts. And and she made it, she did not make the television show. But she made it to the top 100 out of 8,000. And so, talk
Wow,
about
that's
real
right.
world market research on people that are judging you on your talent and ability. So I'm looking forward to her being on next week and telling that story and a lot of other great business lessons that she's learned. Let's see if we have any other. Let me scroll back through the chat here and see if anybody else chimed in with a question that we need to answer. David, I have a suggestion on uh, how you can apply magnify to your business. But I'm gonna save that for an offline chat.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to hold you to that because I'm always about, I love that word magnify or amplify. I like or multiply, but magnify and amplify is so important to branding, to positioning, to everything because what was like you had said in your presentation, I think that our friends at Graphy also echoed this. If you have a good idea and it's already tested, you know it's good, the market says they want it and everything, but nobody's heard of it. You can't build it and expect people to come buy it. You got to raise
Especially not,
awareness.
listen, especially not in today's world, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's so hyper competitive out there that, what are you doing to stand out as different, better, more valuable? And people have to perceive you that way in order for you to win out over the competition. Otherwise, it's like driving down the street and seeing three gas stations within reasonable proximity of each other, and one's 2 cents less per gallon. If one's 2 cents less per gallon, and in my estimation, 87 octane is 87 octane, I'm going to pick the one that's cheapest, right?
Every
So
time.
if you don't want to be the one that's selling for the cheapest and going through that downward business death spiral of competing on price, then you've got to do things differently, right? And so
Let
that's
me ask you a
why.
question.
Yeah, go ahead. And we've got
Sorry to
about two
interrupt.
minutes here. No, go
Let me
ahead.
ask you a quick question. Let's say all three gas stations have exactly the same price. What makes you choose one over the other?
Well, it might be brand familiarity. It might be previous experience, right? I did a podcast interview, and the gentleman that was the host, we were talking about this kind of example, and he said, I choose based on how clean their bathrooms are. Well, that's a point of differentiation, right? And frankly, clean bathrooms, if you've got a reputation for that, that might make the difference. You might be able to charge 2 cents more per gallon by having that because people know
Very
that's
good
what they're
point.
getting, right? It's customer experience. And
And
so,
do the
but you've got to
research to
have,
find out why.
yeah, but David, you've got to get noticed first before people can have a customer experience, right? You can't
Yep.
you can
People got to hear
continue
it
a conversation that started, but you got to have the conversation started first. So
100%.
yeah. So with that, I think we're going to go ahead and put a wrap on this particular webinar session. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Thanks again to Graphy for their sponsorship. David, thank you for coming on and
You.
sharing. Those are some terrific questions and considerations, even if somebody cannot afford to hire you, which they really should do. Even if they can't afford to hire you immediately, those are questions that they're going to need to answer before they go to market and waste time, money, and effort on a potential flop. Well, great. Thanks, everybody, and we will see you later.